Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. Today is October 27th, 2016. I'd like to go a little bit off script, if you don't mind today, Michael, because there's so much going on. Right now, we have the President of the Philippines finally visiting here.
Well, it's strange. You could say that he's been restrained, and at the same time, he's continued to mouth off about the United States, which is probably not the best thing to do coming out of China and coming to Japan, which is the strongest U.S. ally in the region.
He seems to be playing the field, doesn't he?
He seems to be playing every field, and of course, as a leader of a sovereign nation, that's entirely cool. And if the Philippines wants to be in some kind of triangulation position, so be it. It is indeed in the middle of the ocean. It has countries on either side that it wants to deal with, also to the north with Japan, all on an equal basis. Okay.
The Philippine community is just ecstatic about his visit to Tokyo.
Well, I don't know if they're ecstatic, but anything that brings the Philippines back on the map makes it is good for the Philippine community here. Nevertheless, you would have to think that a lot of them are more conservative and much more allied with the United States, so that his brand of Philippine nationalism is kind of a challenge.
I saw him on TV the other day talking with the Prime Minister and sitting next to the Prime Minister, the Vice Prime Minister, Minister Aso, and I was struck by the fact that he really flaunts his hang-loosedness. His tie was askew, his jacket was open, he was kind of bobbing and weaving, and I thought, boy, you can really tell that he's a provincial kind of guy. He really hasn't been on the global scene, and you can see these things coming out in the open.
Well, whether that's an act, what he's like in person, hard to say, but certainly he plays it as hard as he can. And there was, of course, this minor controversy or this minor fear among protocol experts here. Is he going to be chewing gum when he meets the emperor during this state visit the way he was chewing gum when he met Xi Jinping? It seems to have gone okay, and everybody was on tenterhooks. Will he behave with the emperor? So he seems to be a professional politician, and he seems to know what he's doing. What he's doing, however, is going to require a constant effort and constant balancing act, which is really contrary to really what you want to do most of the time, which is you want to minimize the amount of contact and the amount of thinking that you have to do. He's decided to be an active player, going this way, going that way, but that's exhausting, and it requires constant, manipulation and constant adjustment.
And it can bite you in the ass.
Yeah, it can, but he knows, and most of the world knows, that you can kick the shins of the United States, and the United States will stay there.
Right.
The United States commitments are very long term, especially its strategic commitments, and the Philippines are in a strategic location.
Right. I apologize for the hodgepodge nature of this. There's a lot of things to talk about. Typically on Tokyo on Fire, we try and have 4 episodes. I don't know if we'll be able to do that today, but there has been a death in the Imperial family, and that's an important thing that we can't devote actually a segment to, but it bears talking about.
Yeah, just as we were filming, the news came out that Prince Mikasa, Takahito, has passed away. Now, okay, so he was just 100 years old. He certainly had a full and lengthy life, and for the most part in good health, though he did die in hospital. However, what this means is that the already tiny imperial family is ever smaller. We're down to 19 members and 4 heirs to the throne. 4 male, because under the laws there are only male heirs. There are only 4 individuals who are now eligible for the chrysanthemum throne. So the death of Prince Mikasa, the younger brother of Hirohito, is, according to the plans of nature, but nevertheless, for the continuity of the imperial family, a big deal.
This bears actually a segment, I think. Maybe next week we should spend 10 or 15 minutes actually getting into the imperial system and what's going on with the Imperial Household Agency and the Prime Minister's office on the abdication proposed by the emperor.
Yeah, that committee is meeting, and it's a very strange situation where virtually none of the members of the committee that is supposed to provide suggestions on what the government should do regarding the imperial household law, none of them are constitutional experts, none of them are legal experts, and none of them are experts on the imperial family itself. We have an Arabist, we have
not a qualification.
Yeah,
apparently.
We have a former newscaster. It was a list of the usual suspects, but none of them having any special knowledge of the situation or the questions at hand. We have to talk about that.
But isn't that somehow how things get done here? You select a committee, the committee, whatever their composition or their qualifications are, comes up with a recommendation, and everybody else down the line kind of rubber stamps it.
Yeah, well, that committee, of course, is fed by the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy cooks everything ahead of time, and
you have a meeting to basically talk about what was told to you to have in the meeting.
That's right, and then you go and present your report to not the emperor, but to the prime minister at the Kante. The photograph is taken, and you actually may have had very little input into what is in the report, but it's done. We went through all of the forms, and voila, here we have the reform to the law, whatever it's going to be. The timing, sometime next year, late. They look at the extraordinary session next year as probably a date when this abdication, and it looks like a one-time only abdication amendment will be done.
Okay. Let's spend some time talking about that perhaps in our next filming series next week.
Maybe.
Finally, I'd like to talk about one of the largest holidays in Japan. It's right upon us.
Oh, here we are at the end of October, and it's the traditional Japanese festival of
Halloween.
That's very strange. How did that happen?
It is very strange, but if you live in Tokyo, as you and I have, this holiday, this festival, this American creation has morphed into probably the biggest city party that Tokyo has.
Well, it's certainly not. Well, you can talk about the New Year's celebrations, the traditional New Year's celebrations, as being a big party. But in terms of young people getting together, it's become part of the calendar.
Halloween.
In the same way that you have the summer fireworks festivals, and then young people dress up in yukata and pair off there. Well, we now have this. Well, it's mostly young adults associated. Not children with trick-or-treating. This young adults dress-up party that in some cases gets a little out of hand.
Right. For viewers that are unfamiliar with the progeny of this, let's talk just a little bit about how it started and just over the last couple of years how it's exploded and created some real problems for the police.
Well, the thing is that it's a police problem is probably the first question you say. How is it a police problem? Well, it's because it's the origins of the wildness are in what you could call civil disobedience.
Right.
And that was, I guess it must have been primarily Americans, but you never know. And they're these foreigners getting on the Yamanote line.
Right. Well, initially, I believe it started with a lot of soldiers coming down from perhaps Fuji on Halloween, going to Roppongi, but just having a wild time during the Halloween season, getting dressed up, just acting up, and riding the train and just staying on the train, letting the train ride. It's about an hour and a half loop around the city, and doors would open, people would come in, they'd be dressed up, they'd be drinking on the trains, creating a commotion.
I don't know exactly what the timing is of the entire loop, but yeah, they would stay on. And people would complain, and therefore it became news. At the same time, certain cities started having parades for Halloween. And they were small-scale affairs, often involving the foreign community. But it's now been incepted into the national calendar.
Right.
And it's now a part of the economic planning of all kinds of consumer goods come out in their Halloween forms. Bakeries have their Halloween baked goods, but the items that you would not associate with the American festival are decked up in jack-o'-lanterns and painted black and all these different things so that it's really become a Japanese festival. And it's within the last 10 years, basically. So it's sort of on the same pattern that set up Valentine's Day here in Japan, which then begat White Day and then begat all kinds of other romantic stories. Japanese culture is moving.
It is moving and it is morphing. I mean, it really is fun on Halloween. Probably this year it'll occur on a Saturday night as usual. Halloween actually falls on a Monday. But groups, and the Japanese love to travel and drink in groups of middle class, middle-aged, even college students dressed up in themes, parading out all over town. Shibuya is a favorite target, and the police presence in Shibuya is just massive.
We were talking about this. You said that they've already set up the barriers?
They've already set up police barriers and a traffic flow, because in the scramble, the most populated, densely populated
they don't
intersection.
Cross. They stand there.
They stay there and party, and everybody's got masks. So who are you going to catch? Who are you going to arrest?
You in the Trump mask. Get out of the crossing. They also have developed one of the interesting things is how to deal with crowds. Special police officers who are trained in being hip.
Right.
So that, okay, people, get out of the crossing. Which is not, sarcasm and slight edge is not something that's generally taught in Japanese police academies.
Right. Well, I was at the scramble last year during Halloween, and they would have lines of police with a rope, and then when it came time, they would just corral and they would pull the rope and pull people out like you're doing sign fishing, and pull them back towards the other side of the intersection, and then the traffic would flow on again.
Well, we'll see what they're going to do this year. It looks like it's going to be even more popular than it was last year, and certainly it's a part of the calendar.
Right, rain's predicted. Please stay tuned. These kinds of things always strike our radar. They're interesting. We'd like to go into them in a little bit more depth, but we'll save that for later. Please stay tuned.